SCP-169. SCP-169, nicknamed the Leviathan, is a creature so massive that an entire archipelago was discovered chilling on its back, and no one noticed until the whole thing shifted 3 kilometers. Turns out the continental drift isn't so continental. It's the Leviathan farting in its sleep. The Foundation stumbled across it after a task force went to investigate weird magnetic signals and ended up realizing the ocean floor had, breathing patterns, which usually means an earthquake is coming, and not, oops, we parked an island chain on a giant shrimp. But that's exactly what happened. The islands aren't islands. They're rocky plates on its back. Estimates put it between 2,000 and 8,000 kilometers long. For Americans who skip geography, that's wider than your entire country. It's thought to be a Precambrian marine arthropod, basically a bug older than bones, still crawling around because God forgot to stomp on it. The USS Eltanin went to investigate in 1962. The Foundation recovered 1 transmission. It's not the ocean floor, and that was it. The Foundation's solution? Sink the entire ship. After all, if no one's around to say they saw a continental bug, did it really exist? NASA now removes any satellite footage to hide its movement, since yes, it drifts about 1 kilometer per week, not because it's slow, but because it doesn't need to hurry. Where's it going to go? It's already everywhere. When it moves, satellites glitch, GPS goes wild, and entire coastlines adjust slightly. So the current containment plan is basically don't poke it. The Foundation evacuated claimed territories under the excuse of rising sea levels and protecting endangered birds, and any scientists asking too many questions get relocated. Sea Eater. I wonder what this thing eats. Probably salads, right? The Sea Eater is a fan-created ocean leviathan inspired by Trevor Henderson-style horror, originally posted by user QMBlue on Reddit. It's 25 kilometers long, 5 kilometers tall, and 4.5 kilometers wide. I'm not kidding. Its mouth alone is nearly 5 kilometers tall. For scale, that's almost the size of your mom. And its mouth is always open, just like... Never mind. The first recorded sighting was in 1923. A woman named Evelyn Mary spotted a massive blue mountain moving toward shore. Within minutes, she realized it wasn't a mountain. It was a worm so large it seemed to defy physics. It started walking onto land, then suddenly retreated as huge chunks fell from its body, followed by a devastating tidal wave. If you ever encounter it, the tidal wave probably won't be what kills you. It's the sight of the thing itself. The Sea Eater is shaped like a giant sea worm, with 2 massive arms made entirely from dead fish. And its body is coated in thick teal scales tougher than metal. But here's the thing. No one knows if it has a brain, a purpose, or even basic awareness. It's not like it chases boats or terrorizes coastal towns. It just exists. But because it's so large, its very existence tends to kill things by accident. Entire fleets? Gone? Tsunamis? Just a casual side effect. Hotel? Travago. Anyway, when too much of its body breaches the surface, a failsafe called crumbling kicks in, meaning it literally falls apart and has to retreat. So technically, it has a weakness. Unfortunately, that weakness is being on land, which doesn't help you if you're on a boat. The Kraken. So imagine you're a 17th century sailor. You've survived 3 weeks of explosive diarrhea in a shared hammock. You sleep next to a guy named Rotting Jim, and the sea has been quiet for days. Like, too quiet. Then, suddenly, you see land. Or at least you think it's land. But what you encounter instead is much, much worse. You see, this thing isn't just a scary fish story passed around over too much rum. The word Kraken comes from the word crake, meaning a twisted creature, which is exactly what it is. A colossal sea monster the size of your average village, with tentacles thick enough to crush an entire ship. The creature rises from the deep like an island. Sailors, thinking they've scored a nice pit stop, anchor near it, and then watch in horror as the land starts moving. Even worse, it doesn't have to grab your ship. Just surfacing displaces enough water to create a whirlpool strong enough to sink a fleet. So if you see it, you're already about to be flushed like a poopy nugget. For years, people assumed sailors were drunk, bad at navigation, or lying for insurance fraud. Then, in the 1850s, we started finding dead giant squids washing ashore, some over 40 feet long. In 2004, researchers photographed one alive at 60 feet. Turns out Kraken legends weren't myth, just 60-foot calamari that grew big enough to make you the appetizer. Ogopogo. If you assumed the worst thing you'd find in Canada is an impolite goose, you were very, very wrong. Deep in British Columbia, Lake Okanagan is home to a creature that's baffled locals for centuries. Witnesses describe something 40 to 50 feet long, with dark skin, a serpentine body, and a big-ass horse-like head. It glides through the water in smooth, undulating waves, powered by a strong tail and fins, leaving a foamy wake as it speeds across the lake. But long before it became the lake monster with a goofy name, the Silks people knew it as Nha-Itk, a water spirit tied to the lake. And unlike modern lake monster stories that end with grainy photos, Naha-a-Itk came with rules. Want to cross the lake? Bring a blood sacrifice, usually a small animal, sometimes a goat. Because, nothing says safe travels, like yeeting a goat into the water. Then came the settlers, who heard water spirit, and immediately rebranded it as a lake demon. They showed up with rifles and slapped on a new name, Ogopogo, borrowed from a 1920s music hall song, presumably to distract from the part where it ate livestock and possibly people. Because while most lake monsters are just blurry shapes in tourist photos, Ogopogo's out here throwing hands. One early settler claimed the creature rammed his canoe and tried to drown him. Others say they've seen it dragging deer underwater from the shore, which raises the question, if you're not safe on land or in the water, where exactly are you supposed to go? Hydra. If there's one piece of advice I can give you, it's don't get headbutted by this thing, because it's got 9 chances to fuck you up. And that number only goes up from there. The Hydra is one of the oldest monsters in Greek mythology. A giant snake-like creature with multiple heads, and every single one's a sore head. It lives in the swamps near Lerna, and the ground around its lair is so toxic that just standing nearby could kill you. But what makes the Hydra terrifying isn't just its size or its venom. It's the math problem, because if you cut one head off, 2 more grow back. I can't wrap my head around that logic, but the Hydra definitely can. Apparently, it has anywhere from 5 to 100 floating heads, depending on how dramatic the story needs to be. But every version agrees. It's nearly impossible to kill. You see, not only is its stank breath extremely disgusting, it's also extremely toxic. And if the toxic fumes don't get you, its poisonous blood will. The creature's most famous appearance is in the Tale of Heracles, who clearly gets ahead of himself. He shows up, starts chopping heads off, and immediately realizes his mistake. Within minutes, he's facing 50 heads instead of 9. Most people would lose their head over this. But his nephew Iolaios has a solution. Burn the stumps so they can't regenerate. Luckily, that works, sort of. So yeah, while the Hydra isn't the largest sea monster, it's definitely the one with the biggest exponential growth. Cthulhu, Squidzilla, or whatever his fan base calls him, is a cosmic entity that exists solely to remind you the universe doesn't give a shit about humans. Created by H.P. Lovecraft in 1928, Cthulhu is described as a massive humanoid with an octopus head, bat wings, and a body so wrong that looking at him shatters your brain. Not because he's just that ugly, but because his existence defies the laws of physics we're used to. Long before humans showed up, Cthulhu ruled everything. Then the stars shifted, conditions got unfavorable, and Cthulhu decided he was tired of the cosmic grind. He retreated to R'lyeh, a sunken city deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, and he's been taking a nap there ever since. R'lyeh itself is a nightmare. The city is built with geometry that shouldn't exist, walls that curve in directions our brains can't process, staircases that go up and down simultaneously, and doorways that open into places they shouldn't. Looking at it too long causes physical pain because your mind keeps trying to make sense of angles that simply don't work. But don't worry, the mental pain is even worse. His dreams leak out psychically, infecting sensitive minds worldwide with madness, nightmares, and, naturally, cult worship. Because obviously, humanity's response to existential dread is forming fan clubs. Entire simp cults exist just to prepare for his return, convinced he'll end civilization and notice their devotion. Good luck on getting noticed, though, because Cthulhu exists on a scale so vast that human concepts like morality, mercy, or even acknowledgement don't apply. We are to Cthulhu what bacteria are to us, noticed only incidentally, or not at all. The Leviathan. You know how they say there's always a bigger fish? Well, I think we found it. The Leviathan comes from ancient myth, most famously the Bible, where it was described as a sea serpent so massive and dangerous that no man-made weapon could even scratch it. In the book of Job, God basically boasts about how no human could possibly survive an encounter with it. I mean, can you pull in a Leviathan with a fishhook? I don't think so. Over time, this idea evolved into the gargantuan Leviathan, which means it's not just a beast, but a living natural disaster hiding beneath the waves. It is typically imagined as continent-sized, coiled in the deepest trenches of the ocean. It has a body armored like stone, eyes glowing like lasers, and a presence that literally bends the ocean around it. Storms, whirlpools, and sudden shipwrecks are often blamed on its movement, but they're actually just side effects of that big-ass thing's shifting position. Unlike other sea monsters, the Leviathan does not hunt. It simply exists. Ships are destroyed not out of malice, but because they were in the way. Entire fleets get smashed simply from it rolling over in its sleep. And I bet Greenpeace hates to see this thing coming, since its awakening means boiling seas, coastlines collapsing, and tsunamis tall enough to drown entire cities. But just like Cthulhu, the Leviathan isn't necessarily evil. It's been around since before humans grew bald, and it genuinely doesn't give a shit whether we live or die. So, where Cthulhu represents cosmic horror, the Leviathan is nature's version. It's vast, ancient, and completely out of our control. Lyngbakr. The good news? This sea monster won't attack you. The bad news, you'll die anyway. The Lyngbakr is a legendary sea creature from Old Norse mythology, best known as one of the most dangerous catfish ever imagined, because it kills through deception, not aggression. Its name translates to heatherback, which is exactly what it looks like. A whale so stupidly massive that his back resembles a small rocky island, completely covered in heather, moss, and seaweed. So naturally, sailors see it and think they've struck land. They anchor nearby, disembark confidently, start punching trees for wood, and light fires to cook their catch of the day. Everything seems perfectly fine until it isn't. Because that vegetation they're standing on, that's not an island. That's the Lyngbakr's little moss hat. And when disturbed, say, by someone lighting a campfire on its spine, the whale decides it's had enough surface time and dives. Sailors don't even get time to panic. One moment, they're cooking dinner. The next, they're drowning in the middle of the ocean, watching heather float where solid ground used to be. But unlike other sea monsters, the Lyngbakr is actually a very good boy. It doesn't hunt ships or attack fleets. It just exists, floating near the surface, looking exactly like a harmless patch of land. So if humans decided to invade any island they encounter, that's on them. Their death comes not from aggression, but from them making very confident, very wrong assumptions. At its core, the Lyngbakr represents the ocean's true nature. Calm on the surface, lethal underneath. It looks trustworthy right up until it drowns you. Leviathan. Before Nessie was catfishing tourists with blurry photos, the Leviathan was the original celebrity sea monster. Back in its day, nothing dealt more damage to ships than this absolute unit, except maybe icebergs and whales. But while those get movie franchises, the Leviathan got something better. A book deal in the best-selling book of all time, the Bible. From the Book of Job to the Book of Enoch, the Leviathan is described as a continent-sized sea serpent, so massive that it makes every sea monster you know look cute. Yes, even this one. Oh, and apparently it breathes fire, underwater. Don't ask me how, because God didn't include the engineering specs. According to God, it's literally unkillable by any known means, though he also says he'll kill it during the end of times. Not sure how, but he's God, so it's his call. Anyway, the Leviathan isn't just the final boss. It's also the final feast. After God defeats it, he'll apparently make sushi out of it. It's only reserved for believers, though, so thank God. So what real-life creature made people think this thing actually existed? Most scholars think it's based on Nile crocodiles, which grow up to 20 feet long, have armored scales, and are terrifying ambush predators. Some also believe that whales might have been the inspiration for the creation of this menace instead. How they went from a random croc or whale to a continent-sized sea monster, I'm not sure. But who knows, maybe it's real. And maybe the reason we've only explored 5% of the ocean is because something really doesn't want us finding the other 95%. Vampire. No other mythical creature is as overused as vampires. They went from old, rotting corpses to sexy high school jocks. But obviously, something as absurd as a walking, talking corpse sucking people's blood can't be real, right? Wrong. Vampires are real, to an extent. And the real-life story is a lot less sexy than that one dude from Twilight. You see, a rare blood disorder called porphyria causes extreme sensitivity to sunlight, fatigue, hallucinations, skin and teeth discoloration, and receding gums that make teeth appear longer and more exposed. Sound familiar? Then there's rabies. Rabies makes victims aggressive, nocturnal, and terrified of water, including mirrors, since they reflect water. I don't know about you, but if I see someone violently avoiding mirrors and acting feral at night, I'm not just going to assume you're scared of your ugly reflection. I'm grabbing the nearest weapon and probably some holy water. Anyway, stories of vampirism are most likely rooted in misunderstood medical conditions. So you probably won't turn into a vampire if someone bites you, but you should still see a doctor and maybe call a cop. On a more disturbing note, there were cases of people returning from the dead because they were buried alive. Before modern medicine, people in comas were sometimes mistaken for dead. Later, loved ones would discover claw marks inside coffins and faces distorted in agony. Rookie mistake, obviously. But yeah, I'd rather have a hot undead stalker showing up at my window than being buried alive or suffering from an incurable disease. Call me shallow, but at least one of those options is hot. Trolls. Before internet trolls, there were cave trolls. Turns out, both are hairy, live in dark places, and yes, both are real. In Nordic and Scandinavian folklore, trolls are big, ugly creatures who live in caves and eat humans. They're usually portrayed as mindless brutes, barely smarter than the rocks they live under. But that's not always been the case. I mean case, because trolls were actually real, and they weren't nearly as stupid as the stories claim. Ever heard of our distant cousins, the Neanderthals? According to some researchers, trolls might have originated from our ancestors' collective memory of them. Up until 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals lived alongside Homo sapiens, like the world's worst neighbors. They were bulkier, stronger, and had prominent brow ridges that made them look brutish compared to us. They lived in caves, wore animal skins, and were probably quite intimidating if you ran into one in the woods. Eventually, evolution ran its course, or we helped it along. Either way, Neanderthals died out, and we collectively forgot they existed for like thousands of years. But the fear stuck. Stories about other humans living in caves persisted across cultures, evolving into folklore monsters. And here's a fun fact. Humans and Neanderthals interbred. So yeah, your ancestors hooked up with trolls. Now here's the thing. We've only explored about 10% of the world's caves. That's 90% of unexplored darkness underground. So maybe trolls are extinct, or maybe they just migrated to Reddit comment sections. Honestly, it's hard to tell the difference. Siren Head. Before you laugh at how ridiculous this thing looks, ask yourself, could something this bizarre actually exist? The answer is yes. And nature's version is somehow worse. Created by Canadian artist Trevor Henderson, Siren Head is a 40-foot tall, super skinny giant with 2 megaphones for its head. It lurks in abandoned places and forests and uses distorted sounds to lure its victims. These sounds range from emergency broadcasts to children's laughter to me begging you to subscribe to my channel. So yeah, hearing children's laughter in the middle of the night while you're out camping in the woods, I don't know about you, but I'm not waiting for sunrise. I'll be running out of there as soon as I can, with or without my children. Though, as you would have guessed, this yapping monster isn't exactly real. But before you dismiss it entirely, nature might have already created something stupider looking. Meet the Tully monster. It's a real creature that existed, that 300 million years ago, and scientists are still scratching their heads over it. Its mouth was positioned far from its body, and its eyes sat on strange stalks extending from its head. On top of that, scientists are not even sure if it had bones, which makes sense when looking at that long-ass, sluggish body. So yeah, nature already proved that ridiculous body designs are fair game. Eyes on stalks? Check. Detached mouth? Sure. So a walking telephone pole with speakers? At this point, it might just be nature's next stupid idea. The Kraken. Remember when we all said we hated shrimp-sized packages? Yeah, well, the ocean heard us and decided to give us a tentacled nightmare, the length of a school bus instead. So, thanks, I guess. Fortunately, though, it's not real. Or is it? For years, debunking the Kraken myth was easy, until it wasn't. Because it turns out there really are gigantic squids and octopi deep in the ocean. Take the colossal squid in Antarctica, for example. This thing measures 40 feet long. Or in American units, one yellow school bus. And these things are armed and dangerous. They've got hooks on their tentacles, eyes the size of dinner plates, and beaks that can slice through steel cable. Oh, and they live 6,000 feet below the surface, hunting in complete darkness. So we only know they exist because sperm whales hunt them. And the whales come back covered in circular scars from suction cups the size of your big-ass head. And did I mention there's also a giant octopus in the Pacific that's at least 12 feet long? Yeah, that's roughly the length of a small sedan. And it's venomous, as if its size wasn't bad enough. The best part is that most of the ocean remains unexplored. According to Live Science, we've actually only explored 0.0001% of the deep sea floor. So yeah, maybe we should just leave the remaining 99.999% unexplored, because who knows what's actually down there. Hell, there might just be a family of leviathans having a pool party down there as we speak. Dragon. Y'all ever wonder why every culture has dragon legends? From the flying bearded sausage in Asian stories to the giant lizard with wings in European folklore, dragons are everywhere, and it turns out there might be some truth to the tales. You see, dragons might have been inspired by dinosaur fossils. Think about it. Ancient people dug up massive reptile skeletons, saw bones the size of midgets, and thought, yeah, that's definitely a flying fire-breathing bird or whatever. So, were they right? Well, sort of. Minus the fire breath and treasure hoarding, a few dinosaur species were basically real-life dragons. Take the pterosaurs, for example, with its bat-like wings, long-ass beak, 30-foot wingspan. And the fact that it's as big as a small airplane, it's horrid. Imagine you're a farmer in the Middle Ages, and you happen to dig up this goofer instead of a potato. I would have pissed my breeches for real. And believe it or not, Chinese dragons did also somewhat exist. Look at this fossil of Dinocephalosaurus orientalis, a 240-million-year-old marine reptile with a snake-like appearance and absurdly long neck. Looks familiar, doesn't it? It's because it resembled dragons from old-ass Asian folklore. So yeah, people have been finding these bones for thousands of years without knowing what they were looking at. In China, these so-called dragon bones were even used for traditional medicine, while Europeans displayed them in churches as proof of giants. So while we all had different perceptions of what a dragon was, no one denied its existence. Anyway, dragons are real. They just happened to be dead for millions of years before we started telling stories about them. Dwarves. You remember those midget-sized dragon bones, right? Turns out not only were the bones real, so were the midgets. Let me explain, and I promise to keep it short. After all, I wouldn't want this to go over anyone's head. Mythology describes dwarves as short, powerful beings, living in mountains and caves. Turns out, those legends might have been onto something, because pocket-sized humans actually existed. They're called Homo floresiensis, and they lived on the island of Flores, Indonesia. Standing at just above 3 to 4 feet, this species is the smallest ancient human species to date. Scientists think it's due to insular dwarfism, a phenomenon where limited food sources force species to shrink over generations. Having a smaller body equals less food needed, thus better survival odds. So better not look down on them or whatever. Unfortunately, that adaptation didn't help when modern humans showed up and made their existence very short-lived, like literally. So yeah, technically a tiny race of humans did once exist, but because we're so short-tempered as a species, we couldn't let anyone else stick around. How could we stoop so low? Anyway, that's not all. Locals on Flores also have legends about the Ogopogo, small, hairy, human-like creatures that lived in caves and stole food. These stories are hundreds of years old, even though scientists didn't discover Homo floresiensis until 2003, which means early modern humans actually encountered these little guys and remembered them in folklore. So yeah, they might have failed to make the cut in evolutionary selection, but at least their short-lived legacy lives on. Hydra. Quick math question. You have 9 heads, but you lose one. How many do you have now? If you said 8, you're right. If you said 18, you've met the Hydra. You see, the Hydra is a snake-like water monster with many heads. But how many? Depends on the story, because the more you cut, the more it grows. And that number can range from 2 to 100 really quickly. Naturally, nobody thought to mention this to Heracles beforehand when he had to fight it for the 12 labors. So each time he cut off a head, 2 new heads grew in its place. After watching Heracles turn 9 heads into 50, his nephew Iolaus finally chimed in with brilliant advice. Just burn the stumps, which would have been great intel if it didn't come like 100 decapitations too late. But is it all a myth? The Hercules part? Absolutely. The Hydra part? Surprisingly, not at all. Animals with multiple heads exist due to polycephaly, which is a genetic mutation that causes an embryo to develop more than one head. It's quite rare, but it happens in snakes, turtles, and other reptiles. There's also a freshwater polyp called Hydra with insane regeneration abilities. Cut it in half? Great! Now you have 2 Hydras. It doesn't age and might be biologically immortal, so naturally humans have been frantically studying it for decades, desperately hoping to unlock eternal life. And while this Hydra lacks multiple heads, it has tentacle-like appendages that look eerily similar to the myth. Thank God it's microscopic. Otherwise, we'd be dealing with an unkillable, exponentially multiplying disaster. Jersey Devil. The story of the Jersey Devil begins, as all good horror stories do, with a really, really bad parenting decision. Back in the 1700s, there was a woman named Mother Leeds, living somewhere deep in the swamps of New Jersey. She already had 12 children, which, let's be honest, is 11 too many. And when she found out she was pregnant again, she reportedly threw her hands up and said, "Lord, let this one be a devil." Imagine being pregnant for the 13th time. Girl, I'd pray for a devil too. And you know what? For once, someone's prayer was answered immediately. So hell yeah, I guess. 9 months later, and you can probably guess what happened. Just kidding, she gave birth to a normal baby boy. For about 5 seconds. Then, the child's skin hardened like leather. His eyes turned red, wings tore through his back, and his legs twisted into hooves. Some say he killed everyone in the room before flying straight up the chimney. Others say he simply left, which frankly is what I'd do too after being born into that family. Since then, locals have sworn that something monstrous stalks the Pine Barrens, a flying, goat-like creature with bat wings, a horse's head, claws sharp enough to gut livestock, and a scream that could curdle milk. Over time, though, skeptics blamed it on birds, hysteria, and bad eyesight. But believers still say the devil's out there, gliding through the Jersey pines. Black Anise. Just outside Leicester, there's a place called Dane Hills, where beneath the last standing oak was a cave, said to be home to someone known as the Black Anise. I mean Anise. If you're confused, trust me, me too. Anyway, Black Anise is basically the boogie woman of Leicestershire. And like every classic witch story, this one starts with an ugly old hag. And by old hag, I mean she had blue skin, claws like blades, and one unblinking yellow eye that shone through the dark. Honestly, I don't know why she's called Black Anise. By the sound of it, she's more Navy Anise. So, yeah, according to folklore, she carved her own cave into the side of the Dane Hills with her iron claws. She didn't only pick it for the view, shocking I know, but also because it doubled as her favorite hunting spot. On dark nights, she'd crouch in the branches of her oak, perfectly still, waiting for a kid to wander below. No kids? No problem. She'd creep into the village, reach through open windows with those claws, and snatch whoever she could. By the time anyone woke up, she'd be back in her cave, skinning her prey, putting the meat aside for later, and slowly devouring what was left. The skins? Sewn into a skirt. So not only was she into recycling, she apparently also had a killer sense of style. Unfortunately, not everyone appreciated her fashion choices, so terrified locals started building their homes with tiny windows just to keep her arms out. If you ask me, the scariest part about this story is the thought of living in Leicester, the Banshee. Shush. Do you hear that? Ah. Okay, that hurts. If your ears weren't bleeding from my dumb jokes, I bet they are bleeding now, and y'all better hope that scream was fake, because if it wasn't, someone's about to die. That sound you just heard? That's the calling card of the Banshee. Depending on who you ask, she either appears as a gorgeous woman with flowing hair or an old crone, like that Anus woman. In Irish folklore, she's known for her dramatic screaming and crying. So, basically how my friends describe me. Anyway, her name comes from Bean Sida, meaning woman of the fairy mounds. Sounds kind of magical, right? Well, she was magical, once. Originally, she was seen as one of the fair folk, a spirit tied to Ireland's ancient gods. But after a few centuries of Christian rebranding, the poor thing got demoted from divine goddess to ghost who screams at your house. Talk about a fall from grace. Luckily, it's not that she kills you or anything. She just shows up before someone dies, screams the bad news, then dips. Basically, the loudest Irish goodbye in history. But shockingly enough, she wasn't always feared. That wail was once an act of compassion, mourning the dead before anyone else could. In a way, she was Ireland's first grief counselor, just louder. So if you ever hear that wail echoing through the night, don't go looking. But if you ever do run into her, maybe give her a little shove off a bridge. Just hope she doesn't know how to banshee jump. Black-eyed children. You all know the black-eyed peas, right? This is them now. Feel old yet? I'm kidding, sorry. Though honestly, you'll wish the worst thing these kids did was sing boom boom pow, because there's only one thing worse than regular kids, and that's kids with completely black eyes. The stories always start the same. You're peacefully watching my videos late at night when there's a knock on the door. Right away, I've got a feeling tonight's not going to be a good night, because if you're dumb enough to open the door, you'll see two pale kids standing on your porch. They talk weirdly polite, monotone, usually asking to come in. It's all very please and thank you, until you notice something's off. Their clothes are outdated, their skin's too pale, and their eyes completely black. According to reports, they started showing up in the late 90s, always in pairs or trios, always asking for permission to enter. Like vampires, they can't come in unless you invite them. So, I guess demons understand consent better than some people. Anyway, if you're still opening your door for random kids in the middle of the night, I don't know what to tell you. Natural selection, I guess. 'Cause when you let them in, you'll get sick, your pets might die, and your nightmares won't ever stop. So yeah, moral of the story? If a child ever knocks at 3 a.m., don't open the door. 'Cause people be killing and people be dying. And honestly, babysitting is not worth eternal damnation. Shirime. You know how I told you about that Annis woman earlier? Yeah, well, she's absolutely gonna love this guy. Meet the Shirime, Japan's most eye-opening yokai, and probably the only reason you'll ever want to wear pants again. From far away, he looks totally normal. Just a polite man in a kimono, strolling the quiet streets of Kyoto after dark. But then he approaches, bows like a gentleman, and softly asks,
"Excuse me, do you have a moment to spare?"
and before you can say yes, boom, he drops the kimono, bends over, and reveals his one glowing eye, right where the sun doesn't shine. That's right, this yokai literally has an eyeball in his butt. His name even translates to butt eye. Very creative, Japan. Now, before you panic, the Shirime isn't dangerous. Well, except for your eyesight, maybe. But other than that, he doesn't attack, curse, or steal souls. He just moons people. For fun. No one really knows why he does it, but I bet he's seen some shit in his life. Anyway, maybe keep an eye out for strangers in kimonos late at night, or you'll end up in the world's worst staring contest. Best case, turn a blind eye and walk away, because if you don't, you'll see something you can't unsee. The Mothman. Picture this. It's 1966 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. a quiet little town where nothing ever happens. Until one night, someone looked up and saw a giant man with wings and glowing red eyes. Naturally, the town freaks out, holds a meeting, and collectively decides to name it the Mothman. Because apparently, Lampshade Larry was already taken. So yeah, real spooky. Witnesses said he had wings 10 feet across, eyes that burned like taillights, and could fly faster than you ignoring the subscribe button. So hey, if you love my videos as much as this guy loves a porch light, maybe hit that button before he hits your window. Anyways, the first sighting happened when a bunch of gravediggers saw him hovering over a cemetery. And honestly, he's kind of hard to miss. After that, sightings exploded all over town. People saw him by the old TNT plant, flying over trees, even chasing cars down dark roads. Then, a year later, tragedy struck. The Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. Locals connected the dots and decided Mothman wasn't just a bug-eyed freak. He was a warning, a flying omen of doom. Of course, skeptics say it was probably just a big owl. Believers, however, call him an alien, a government experiment, or maybe even an omen that appears before tragedy. Either way, Point Pleasant turned him into a celebrity. They built him a shiny statue, complete with an ass Nicki Minaj would die for, and now host an entire Mothman festival every year. But if you ever spot him yourself, don't panic. Just turn off the light. Trust me, it's the only time avoiding responsibility might save your life. Skinwalker. All right, picture this. You hear scratching at your door, you peek outside, and your dog's there. Cute. Except he's standing on his hind legs, and he just rang the doorbell. What do you do? Now, if your first instinct is to open that door, honestly, same. Then I hate to break it to you. You just invited a Skinwalker inside. The legend of the Skinwalker comes from Navajo tradition, where they're known as Yi Naldlushi, which translates roughly to, with it, he goes on all fours. But long before they started to cosplay as your dog, they were once medicine people who used sacred rituals for healing. To no one's surprise, some got greedy. They decided to take on new hobbies like murder, grave desecration, and even cannibalism, all in the pursuit of forbidden power. And that's when they stopped being human and started being a furry. Well, sort of. It's said that to become a Skinwalker, a witch must kill a close family member to gain the ability to shapeshift into any creature they choose. Coyotes, wolves, owls, anything they've imprinted on. They can also mimic voices, wear faces, and move just like us. Which is great news for my male viewers, since half of you wouldn't notice the difference anyway. Your partner could walk in with hooves and glowing eyes and you'd still be like, new haircut? But be mindful. Even talking about skinwalkers is taboo in Navajo culture, because saying their name gives them power. But don't worry, guys, I'm sure I'll be fine. Tokoloshe. In the still hours before dawn, when shadows stretch long and breath hangs in the air, the Zulu people say something else moves in the dark, something small, hairy, and very, very mean. They call it the Tokoloshe, a dwarf-like water spirit born from dark magic and bitter grudges. According to legend, a Tokoloshe is made by a shaman who's been wronged, using ashes, blood, and a hot iron poker driven through a corpse's skull. The sorcerer summons this creature to hunt his enemies, basically a spiritual hitman, but smellier and significantly less professional. And trust me, the stench is probably the least of your problems, because this lad doesn't just scare, it sneaks into homes, strangles sleepers, steals children, and twists dreams into sickness. And he does all that while looking like a mutilated goblin with hollow eyes and rotting teeth. Though other times, he's described as half bear, half human. Either way, you'll know it's been there, by the bite marks or the missing toes. Even today, it's still blamed for everything, from stolen jewelry to mysterious deaths. It's basically South Africa's all-purpose excuse. So next time your teacher asks why your homework isn't done, just shrug and say, Tokoloshe. Works every time. But if it comes for you, there's one trick that might save you. Raise your bed on bricks before sleeping, because apparently the Tokoloshe just can't jump that high. The Manananggal. If you came here hoping to laugh your ass off, sorry, someone already beat you to it. This creature's got people tripping hard, over an actual ass no less. We're talking about a creature from Filipino folklore who detaches her entire upper body from her lower half and flies off into the night to slurp up fetuses through the roof. Yes, really. She leaves her legs behind, just out in the open. So imagine going on a little midnight walk and seeing a full human dump truck just parked in the grass. And I'm being dead ass right now, because, it's her ass. Cheeky jokes aside, the name comes from the word tangal, which means to separate, because that's exactly what she does. Once her torso is airborne with giant bat wings and a thirst for unborn children, it's over for your ass. She scans the rooftops for pregnant women, snakes her long, hollow tongue through a crack in the ceiling, and helps herself to a midnight snack. I can tell you, it's not yogurt. Sometimes, though, she seduces men with her beauty instead. I do wonder if the beauty is in the room with us right now. Because she's not exactly beautiful inside and out, but she sure enjoys what's inside men, namely hearts, livers, and stomachs. The good news is that she has weaknesses. Your best bet is to find her abandoned lower half and make it disappear. Keep her from rejoining her halves by sunrise, or the whole mess walks away. Survival chance? 20%, let's just say, you're head over heels in trouble. But hey, at least the next creature uses his butt for something useful. Like, horseback riding. The Nuckelavee. Okay, I may have been mistaken. He's not exactly riding a horse. He is the horse. Sort of. Straight out of the Orkney Islands. The Nuckelavee is considered one of the most hated demons in Scottish folklore, and that's in a country where demons basically outnumber sheep. So here's what you're dealing with. Imagine a giant horse with flipper legs, a glowing red eyeball, and a human torso just awkwardly attached on top. If that wasn't goofy enough. The human part also has absurdly long arms that probably just drag through whatever dirt it's stomping over. And to top it off, it has absolutely no skin. So if you ever come across it, you might mistake it for a log of salami. But the Nuckelavee doesn't just look disgusting. He is disgusting. This thing's breath alone can rot crops, kill livestock, and give you the worst seasonal allergies of your life. Entire villages blamed it for outbreaks of disease and famine. And want to know what triggered his tantrums? The smell of burning seaweed. That's it. Burn some kelp, and next thing you know, your cows are dead. Your only shot of survival is that he can't cross fresh water. So if you ever see it coming, just find a creek and hop over it. Or step outside when it rains, because apparently he won't. No idea why. Maybe it tickles his skinless body. Survival chance, 35%, maybe higher if you throw salt, lemon juice, and maybe a toothbrush his way. Cipactli. So, you know how most creation myths start with light and order? Yeah, not this one. The Aztecs kicked things off with a giant sea monster that was somehow half fish, half toad, and half crocodile. Yes, I know the math is wrong. But in my defense, so is everything else. Anyway, born from primordial chaos, Cipactli didn't really do anything except exist and eat. The problem was, she had mouths on basically every joint. Arms, legs, elbows. Just mouths everywhere. All of them permanently set to devour. So every time the gods tried to make something cool, a mountain, a sky, Grand Theft Auto 6, she popped up and swallowed it whole. Total hater energy. So naturally, they decided to get rid of the thing. Eventually, one of the gods, Tezcatlipoca, pulled a fine, I'll do it myself, and used his own leg as bait. Cipactli took the bait, chomped it clean off, and the gods jumped her. After a group beat down, they tore her apart and made the world out of her body. Which means, yes, the ground beneath your feet is technically one giant dead fish lizard. And what's worse, she's kind of still alive. So to keep her from fully respawning, the gods demanded regular blood sacrifices. If you ask me, I'd keep an eye on all the chipotles spawning everywhere. Cipactli, chipotle, kinda sus, no? Survival chance, 100%. Unless you skip the blood offering or disrespect her at a taco joint. Krasue, you know Manananggal? Yeah, well, Krasue looked at that and said, I'm gonna get ahead of this whole body thing, and then left hers behind, completely. At first, she appears as a young, beautiful woman, just casually hanging around. But then you look down and see her intestines doing the same thing, just, more literally. You see, when night falls, her head detaches and decides to head out. Intestines and organs still fully attached and hanging on for dear life. She was cursed, apparently, usually for something a bit awful like infidelity or murder. And now she spends her nights on the hunt for blood. But if she can't find any, she'll downgrade to rotting meat. Or poop, I wish I was kidding. But her all-time favorite? Pregnant women. Because apparently, slurping up a fetus or licking placenta with a demon tongue is a 2-for-1 special you just won't find at Cipactli. Luckily, it's pretty easy to get rid of her. Just hide or destroy the body she leaves behind. No body, no backup plan. Or better yet, surround your place with spiky bushes. Apparently, her dangly bits tend to get tangled. Just don't drink anything weird while she's in town. If you ingest even a drop of her fluids, you're the next Krasue. Survival chance, 50%. Higher if you don't smell like afterbirth. Siguanaba. From far away, she's a solid 10. From up close, it's more nay than slay. This demon from Central American folklore shows up as a stunning, long-haired woman, usually bathing by a moonlit river or washing clothes in some sketchy ditch. She's typically clothed in nothing but a see-through gown, or more often absolutely nothing at all. Of course, some people see this as the perfect chance to shoot their shot. And let's be honest, It's always men. In particular, night owls, drunks, or cheaters tend to get lured in, thinking they're about to score big. She lets you follow her off the beaten path, tossing glances over her shoulder, and then she turns around. I already hear you. Damn, catfish. It's actually a horse skull, you dummy. Luckily, I know something that will fix this problem. However, if you don't have access to a grocery bag, you'll probably die of shock. But if the shock didn't kill you, she'll lead you mad, lost in the wilderness. And if you're wondering about kids, no worries. She gets them too. Thank God she uses a more PG-friendly disguise for that, usually appearing as their mom. If, however, you find yourself in her presence, rumor has it you can banish her by biting your machete or making the sign of the cross. Or, if that doesn't work, you might have just hit on someone who's unfortunately real, in which case, just tell her you're not interested. Survival chance? 40%. Much lower if you have wandering eyes. Soucouyant. This one comes straight from Caribbean folklore. And before you ask, no, she's not hot, just on fire. Because once the sun sets, she's peeling off her wrinkled skin, folding it neatly into a mortar, and blasting through the sky as a literal fireball. Unfortunately, not that kind of fireball. During the night, she slips through cracks, keyholes, floorboards, basically any opening you forgot to patch up, and drains blood from sleeping victims. How she manages to extract blood while being on fire is unclear. Maybe she's got a straw. If you're lucky, you wake up with some nasty bruises. If not, you're either dead or you wake up as her replacement, which is a tough promotion to explain. And no, the blood's not for snacks. She trades it to a demon named Basil, who lives inside a silk cotton tree and apparently runs some kind of evil rewards program. What does he do with it? No idea. Now here's the fun part. To stop her, you can just throw some rice in her face. Apparently, she's cursed to count every grain before sunrise. So yeah, the phrase "put it in rice" isn't just for phones. Who knew? If you're feeling extra bold, you could find her skin and salt it. That'll lock her out of her body for good. Survival chance 60%. Lower if you ever sang along to Fireball by Pitbull. Alp. If you suffer from sleep paralysis, you might want to blame this guy. In German folklore, the Alp is a tiny gremlin that sneaks into your room at night, sits directly on your chest, and gives you the worst sleep of your life. As you can't move, you're basically forced to stare into the dark, wondering what the hell is holding you down. And then you spot it. A stupid little magic hat. It's called a Tarnkappe, basically a magical beanie that makes it invisible. So if your cat is suddenly rocking headwear, maybe don't assume it's just being quirky. During the day, the Alp disappears, but once night hits, it's shapeshifting into pigs, snakes, butterflies. Even your dead cousin, if that'll mess with you more. And if sitting on your lungs wasn't enough, it might also tangle your hair, drink blood from extremely questionable places, or sour your milk just to be annoying. Luckily, it's pretty easy to get rid of the pests. You could just stick a broomstick under your pillow, hang iron horseshoes on your bedpost, place a mirror on your chest, or hang steel crosses around the room. You can even just ask it to come back later for coffee. It'll leave, then show up in the morning, usually as a man with eyebrows, ready to receive its gift. Don't ask about the eyebrows. Apparently, that's just part of the deal. Survival chance 60%, as long as your cat isn't into cosplay. Goatman. Greatest of all time? You've got to be kidding me. Try Get Out and Terrorize. Said to stalk the woods of Maryland, Texas, and Louisiana, this axe-wielding cryptid is part man, part goat, and definitely banned from the barnyard. He's known for chasing cars, dismembering pets, and interrupting teenage makeout sessions in the worst way possible. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is he terrifying, or did we just catch him mid-shit? Honestly? Both. Some say he's just a reclusive old hermit with a goat obsession. Others swear he was once a scientist working at the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, experimenting on goats until something went horribly wrong. The result is a bloodthirsty goat hybrid with a chip on his hoof and an axe to grind. And if you're the type to greet him with a cheerful, "Thanks, you're the goat, man," that may just be your last words. The thing is, Goatman-type creatures go way back. Ancient Greece had satyrs doing the same weird hoof stuff, just with more wine. And in the US, he's got cousins. The Pope Lick Monster, the Waterford Sheepman, all the same guy, but with different zip codes. So if something hairy is standing by your car, breathing heavily, and your date's nowhere to be found, yeah, you might want to drive. Survival chance? 45%. 10% if you tell a bad joke. Ammit? You know the term crocodile tears? Yeah, I finally found out where it came from. Because if I looked like this, I'd cry too. And just hope you don't have a heart attack when you encounter her. Because if you do, she's the one who gets to eat it. This fusion of a crocodile, lion, and hippo is Ammit, an ancient Egyptian deity / demon. She hangs out in Duat with the other underworld guys, including Osiris, Anubis, and Thoth, and no, not that kind of thought. Anyway, Ammit is kind of like their pet. It's a golden rule in mythology that pets in the underworld should be creepy as hell. No pun intended. Forget pretty horses with wings. In the underworld, the uglier the better. It seemed Osiris couldn't decide what pet to get, so he took parts of the biggest man-eating animals in Egypt, and boom! Ammit was born. And her favorite chew toy? Human heart. I guess the underworld didn't give much thought on her name, because Ammit literally meant devourer of hearts. Someone probably asked, "Dude, that's it? That's her name?" And then Ammit said, "Yep, Ammit." But she's more than just a pet, though. She acts like the Punisher, taking dibs on the hearts of humans who led sinful lives on Earth. Once you die, your heart would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If it's lighter, off you go to the field of reeds, where it's happy ever after. If it's heavier, your heart becomes Ammit's chew toy, and this will effectively delete all your chances of entering afterlife forever. How to win against it? Can't win in a one-on-one fight. But you can save your heart if you're not a dick in life. Apophis. Imagine fighting a god on a nightly basis. Sounds exhausting, right? But not for Apophis. He's a hard worker, grinding every night to achieve his one and only dream, devouring Ra, the sun god. Why? So he and the rest of us won't ever wake up to the sound of the damn alarm clock ever again. Sounds hysterical, right? Apophis is a serpent deity who personifies chaos, darkness, and destruction. Meanwhile, Ra is the god of light and the sun itself. He's a total snack. Maybe that's why Apophis sees him as one. So now, his one and only job is to eat Ra and make sure to stop the sun from ever rising again. You see, every time the sun sets, Ra dies and rides a boat across the underworld. There, Apophis waits for him for a chance to actually do that one job, which is to squeeze the life out of Ra. Unfortunately for Apophis, Ra got a bunch of sidekicks to help him fight the giant noodle of terror. And if you're wondering who, oh, just a bunch of big-name gods like Bastet and Set. Set can cut up his own brother, but he'll set all of those aside to fight that one snake who can end the world in a snap. Anyway, eclipses are usually the sign that Apophis is almost winning. Fortunately, he never actually did. So good luck waking up for work tomorrow. How to win against it? I'm not sure, but maybe a flute and a basket will do some damage. Bennu Bird. Before Big Bird made it into Hollywood, he was an ancient Egyptian deity and had a wildly different stage name. Bennu Bird. Actually, nope, that wasn't him, sorry. My next jokes won't fly over your head, I promise. This is Bennu Bird, a mythological creature linked to rebirth, resurrection, and possibly copyright infringement, since the Phoenix may or may not have stolen his entire brand. Or, so Bennu B claims. Phoenix can't be reached for a comment regarding this issue. In Egyptian mythology, Bennu B played an important role. He was an early bird who started creation and helped out other gods like Ra, Atum, and Osiris. But if Bennu B helped out the gods, who created him? Well, basically, no one. He just said one day, "Let there be me," and he cracked out of existence. Like, seriously. In some stories, though, he didn't just rise with the sun. He was part of the sun. Well, sort of. Somehow he got separated from the sun god Ra's soul. So he just winged it from there. So when the universe was still just darkness and ocean, before time, before gods, before anything, Bennu flew alone over the endless waters. Until one day he'd had enough. He landed on a rock and shrieked so loud that everything started after that. Time, day, night cycles, basically creation itself. So next time someone tells you yelling solves nothing, just remind them a shriek from a random bird is why reality exists. So I'll try the same. Subscribe to my channel right now. If Bennu can birth a universe, surely a chicken can earn a like, am I right? Sphinx. Nope. I'm not talking about that wrinkly, hairless breed of terror that looks like a hand soaked in water. I meant the actual Sphinx, the one posing in front of the pyramid that's in desperate need for a nose job. And if you're wondering where his nose went, no one knows. As you can see, sphinxes are creatures with a human's head, a lion's body, and an eagle's wings. They usually guard tombs and treasures, but sometimes they like to moonlight as the Riddler. Their duties include terrorizing unlucky peasants in ancient Greece, hanging around crossroads, and trolling passerbys by asking riddles. And if you can't answer it right, you don't just fail, you get eaten. But while Sphinx is usually known for their sharp minds and sharp claws, they aren't always dangerous. You see, depending on the place, some sphinxes don't actively seek out to harm humans. Unlike their Greek counterparts, Egyptian sphinxes are pretty chill. It's the Greek ones you gotta watch out for. The riddle thing is honestly just their part-time job. Their main one is bringing plague and catastrophe to cities. Apparently, the only way to stop it is by giving the right answer. One guy actually did solve her riddle once, but instead of taking the L gracefully, the Sphinx got so mad that she yeeted herself off the cliff and died. Talk about being in denial. How to win against it. Knowledge of puns can go a long way. Don't panic and answer as calmly as possible. You might get lucky. Uraeus. Ever wondered what that snake thing is on the pharaoh's headdress? That, my friend, is the Uraeus, a mythical cobra standing on the pharaoh's head. Its purpose is to let everyone know who's the boss, of course. Uraeus isn't just a regular cobra. Not like normal venomous snakes are perfectly safe to put on your head, but this one's built different. Very different. You see, Uraeus doesn't spit venom. It spits a fire breath instead and keeps its aim straight at the pharaoh's enemies. Now, you know why it's on the top of the head. Doesn't matter if the pharaoh's short and stumpy. A direct hit on the enemy's skin is enough. Unless they have water, which would make the fire breath less effective, obviously. But why wear this thing on the head, though? I mean, why not just carry them around and swish them like a wand? Well, Uraeus is one part of the vulture-snake headdress combo, representing the cobra goddess Wajet from Lower Egypt. That cobra lady also rears and protects the pharaohs all their life. Even in death, she's still there. To breastfeed the pharaohs? I'm not even kidding. In any case, Uraeus is the pharaoh's head protector, in every sense of the word. Who knew that a bad breath is a powerful weapon? Actually, now that I think about it, it kind of is. How to win against it. Practice physical distancing. Sekhmet. Imagine being so unreasonably powerful that you nearly deleted the human race by accident. Now imagine the only way to stop you is with beer. That's Sekhmet. She's the goddess of war and medicine, vengeance and protection, plagues and healing, and, apparently, goddess of getting hammered. But before becoming a raging drunk, Sekhmet was actually known as the Powerful One. With breath that summons desert storms and superpowers that bring diseases, Sekhmet makes Uraeus look almost cute. Naturally, she slayed at her job. So Ra, the sun god, ordered her to literally slay his enemies. So when humans started rebelling, he sent Sekhmet to Earth with a simple mission: punish the guilty. Instead, Sekhmet opened the group chat with, "New hobby, murder." She didn't just punish the guilty, she kept going. Towns, villages, farmers, non-subscribers, no one was safe. To stop her rampage, Ra and the other gods devised a brilliant plan. Pour beer on the lake, sprinkle it with red ochre, and lure Sekhmet into it. Because when you're an unstoppable force of rage, apparently your one weakness is not knowing what drinks look like. Thinking it was blood, Sekhmet pounced on the lake, drank it all, and became so drunk that she gave up on her slaughter and peacefully went back to Ra, probably too hungover to do any more damage. So yes, a beer a day literally keeps the massacre away, or whatever that saying is. How to win against her? Bring alcohol. A whole lake of it. Ispeth. No, it's not hands, it's fet. Sorry, that was a bad one, I'll know. So, remember Apophis? You know, that snake guy who fights Ra the gods nonstop because he's a picky eater? Turns out he's not just a cranky noodle. He's the physical form of Ispeth, the ancient Egyptian idea of pure chaos. In ancient Egypt, Ispeth isn't necessarily a creature on its own. Instead, it's basically the very concept of disorder, chaos, and evil. It is the embodiment of everything that isn't nice, with injustice and violence being just the tip of a bottomless iceberg. Every negative thing you can think of, blame it on Ispeth. It's one half of the dual forces that exist in the universe. On the other side is Ma'at, who embodies truth, order, harmony, morality, law, and justice. Ispeth and Ma'at must learn to live inside their get-along shirt for all eternity, so the universe can exist just fine, perfectly balanced, as all things should be. But this balance generally means Ma'at should always come on top and keep Ispeth at the bottom, which is pretty understandable, given Ispeth is quite an unpleasant fellow. If Ispeth were to rise, everything would be upside down. Everything decays, including humans, time, the gods, the earth, and even the Nokia 3000. In fact, the pharaoh's ultimate goal is to achieve Ma'at and keep Ispeth at bay. But Ispeth doesn't give up easily, so Apophis comes out to fight for her stead. Unfortunately for her, the power of friendship still wins in the end. How to win against it? You can't kill a concept, but you can recycle, meditate, and not commit crimes. Close enough. Serpapard. Egypt sure loves to mix things up. In this case, we got a serpent and a leopard in the house. And its name is, you guessed it, Steve. I'm kidding, it's actually Serpapard. Since nobody knows its real name, everyone just agreed on calling it serpapard and somehow got away with it. As you guessed it, the serpapard has the body of a leopard with the neck and head of a serpent. So, kind of like a giraffe, but instead of nibbling leaves, it bites your head off clean. Unlike other ancient Egyptian mythical creatures, there isn't much lore on serpapards. We only saw them on artifacts like cosmetic palettes, cups, and bowls. What they do or what they came from, we don't exactly know. Some say they're just symbols of protection and royalty. Others believe that the serpapard is not a mythical creature at all, but an extinct animal that existed during that time. Either way, the ancient Egyptians decided to draw them in the pharaoh's skincare kit. Can't blame them, though. Serpapards got that drip. How to win against it? You're probably just seeing a giraffe or a camel. Stop snorting the coal. All right, folks, that concludes the list. So yeah, ancient Egypt was basically a mythology fever dream. And if you don't subscribe, I'm telling Sekhmet where you live.